Maria Coley from Independent Women's Forum. It's a fantastic group of people that fought very hard on this issue. I think everybody in this room really fought very hard on this issue. Kim Fletcher, we know Kim. Debbie, I think Debbie's here. Kruledis from also Moms of America. And Penny Lance, of course, CEO of the Concerned Women for America. That is a lot of people. Thank you very much, Penny. Good job you do. That's a lot of people. Can I give here, what don't you hold that? Will you sell it tonight? So just to finish up, I'm directing the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who, by the way, is doing a fantastic job. In fact, he just left Panama. We're trying to take back the Panama Canal, little things like that. It'll all happen. But Marco is going to make clear to the International Olympic Committees there, and he's going to make it as clear as anybody can make it, that America categorically rejects transgender lunacy. We want them to change everything having to do with the Olympics and having to do with this absolutely ridiculous subject that we even have to talk about this subject. If you went back 10 years or 15 years and you would move forward and listen to this, you'd say, what the hell are they talking about? This is impossible. But you have people out there, Democrats, that are still totally in favor. They can't win the argument. They can't win a debate. They look like fools, and they continue to go on. And it's okay, because as long as they do this and open borders and all of the other things they talk about, transgender everything, all they want to do is transgender and men playing in women's sports and all of these crazy things. And if they continue, I think we're going to end up ultimately, it's not going to matter because we're never going to go along with them, and we're just going to keep winning elections, right, Mike? So when the Olympics comes to Los Angeles, I was responsible for getting the Olympics, and I said, oh boy, this is terrible because I got the Olympics and I won't be president. And then what happened is that in an election, strange things happened in an election. So I missed 4 years, and now I have the Olympics. It was sort of circuitous. It was a circuitous situation. And we also have the World Cup coming, which is going to be fantastic. And we have, as you know, very importantly, 250 years coming. That's a big one next year, so that's a very big one. But in Los Angeles in 2028, my administration will not stand by and watch men beat and batter female athletes, and we're just not going to let it happen, and it's going to end, and it's ending right now, and nobody's going to be able to do a damn thing about it, because when I speak, we speak with authority. And for the same reason, just to make sure, I'm also directing our Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, who's also she's out there with you, Greg, a fantastic job. She's unbelievable. I was watching her riding yesterday on a horse. She was as good as anybody. She's very good. To deny any and all visa applications made by men attempting to fraudulently enter the United States while identifying themselves as women athletes, try and get into the games, maybe where they are unable to get into the games. We're honored to be joined today by many incredible advocates for women's sports, including the brave swimmer at the forefront of this battle. And Riley Gaines is a person that I've been watching. Yeah. She fought hard. Riley was a 12-time All-American. Well, that's pretty good. 12-time All-American who sacrificed countless hours in the pool just for a chance at the title. It's so important to her. She gave up everything and just gave everything she had. But then the league forced her to share a spot on the podium with a male swimmer who took her trophy while the media celebrated this stolen glory. And Riley is just a tremendous athlete, and it was a very unfair situation. I watched it. A lot of people watched it. It was ridiculous, frankly. But I want to thank Riley. She really has been in the forefront. People that aren't that well-versed in this would say that she was the leader. And Great job, Riley. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And also with us is another great champion for women, Peyton McNabb. In high school, Peyton was a rock star athlete. Where is Peyton? Where is Peyton? I like Peyton. Nice to see you. Good job. Good job. Looks like a good athlete to me. In high school, Peyton was a rock star athlete preparing for a future in college sports, but in one volleyball match, a much taller and stronger male spiked the ball right in her face, knocking her unconscious, partially paralyzing her right side and leaving her with a traumatic brain injury. And Peyton said it was 100% avoidable if only my rights as a female athlete had been more important than a man's feelings, and we can't let it happen, and it's not going to happen. Not going to happen anymore, Peyton. It's not going to happen. Are you okay? Are you good?
I'm doing a lot better.
Good. That's good. Thank you. We're also pleased to be joined by many incredible leaders on this issue. And as I mentioned before, Speaker Mike Johnson, and he has been so strong on this issue because he's a man of common sense. I mean, it really is. It's common sense more than anything else. So, Mike, thank you. Great job. Great job in everything. He's got the easiest job of any politician in history. He's got the nicest, like 200 and almost 20. It sort of varies between, depends on how many people I take from my administration. It goes up and down a little bit, but I promised I won't take any more. I just wanted to see how good he was. I was testing you. And we have some great people, but he's filling them up rapidly. He had some big wins the other day, very big wins the other day. But you've done a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate it. We all appreciate it. And also the dozens of members of the House and Senate and governors that attorney generals, so many people, and the people outside that can't even get in. This room is packed. And, I offered to build a ballroom. I'm very good at building ballrooms. I build beautiful ballrooms. And I actually offered to build a ballroom for the White House. I was going to build it right there. This was going to be the reception room. And then I was going to build a beautiful, beautiful ballroom like I have at Mar-a-Lago, as beautiful as it can be. It was going to cost about $100 million. I offered to do it, and I never heard back. I offered to do it to the Biden administration, very active administration. And they didn't hear back. And I said again and again, 3-4 times, I said to top people, and they just didn't know what to do. They sort of said, this is good, but they had no idea. So I'm going to try and make the offer to myself, because we could use a bigger room, right, Marsha? We could use a bigger room. President, would you like to build? Yeah, I would. We could use at the White House. It would actually be a beautiful addition. It's going to cost nothing. I'll spend the whole thing myself. We'll do a big, beautiful room, but we could use it at the White House. You know what they do when they have a big ceremony? They put up a tent. And somehow I think we've outgrown the tent stuff, right? Don't you think? So we'll see if they can, we'll see if Trump will approve it. But the actions we're taking today are the latest in a sweeping effort to reclaim our culture and our laws from the radical left crusade against biological reality. On day one, I made it official, and I'm making it official policy of the United States government that there is, two genders. We have two genders. What might they be? Man and woman, right? Male and female. Male and female. Can't think of too many others, but it's pretty amazing. I rescinded federal funds to, and this is so important, to any program that promotes transgender ideology using taxpayer dollars. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. And last week, I effectively banned the chemical castration and surgical mutilation of minor children. Can you believe I even have to say that? I banned governor, I banned, that's just like, who would ever think we have to even say that? Last week I banned. every day we're ending the extremism of the last 4 years. We have other things that are just as ridiculous, not having to do with the subject, but just as ridiculous. Open borders where people are allowed to pour in from all over the world, from jails and prisons and mental institutions and insane asylums, people that are very sick, people that are very evil, killers, murderers. Many of them murdered more than one person. And we have to justify the fact that we're moving them out. We are moving them out in tremendous numbers. Tom Homan and Christie are doing a fantastic job, and the governor and other governors too. But that we have to even fight for this stuff is just incredible. And the media doesn't want to talk about it because it's nothing they can talk about. It's just they just don't want to really talk very much about it. Serious problem, but we're doing a great job, and the people understand, and that's why we won in a landslide. You know, they made it easy, and at some point, you know, we have to hope they do come around because we can never let this happen again. What's happened to our country, we can never let this happen again. So we are restoring sanity and common sense very simply to our government. We're defending the rights and safety and pride of the American people, including our great, great, great female athletes. What athletes you are, too, I tell you. And, you know, I'm not allowed to say this politically. It could end my career. They're really beautiful people. These are beautiful people. But you know, like everything else, it's a little bit different today. You're not allowed to say that because if you call a woman or a girl beautiful, that's the end of your career. But let's take a chance on it, Mike. Let's take a chance. So I want to thank everybody for being here. It's fantastic. And this is sort of a big, big day. It shouldn't have even been necessary to take place. This started a long time ago, and we ended it today. And I'm going to sign the executive order right now, and everything I said will go into effect immediately, okay? Thank you.
Sit down, please.
Down in front.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you.
You know, if you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Come on. Secret Service is worried about them. If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay, do you want to do this? Watch what I do, and then I'm going to give you some pens, okay? You ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature because this is, you know, this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
Pretty good, huh? I see that. Okay? Good. Now you're going to go out and win those events, right? Nice to see you all. Nice to see you. Great going, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you, kids. Here, take a pen.
Thank you.
I'll give some of these out, okay? Take a pen, take a pen.
Thank you so much.
Where's Riley?
All right, we've been watching President Trump sign this executive order
that bans biological men from competing against women in women's sports. This is usually the time at which reporters in the room can ask questions to the president, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen now as he starts to exit the East Room of the White House, where you just saw he was speaking in front of a group of, let's listen in and see if we can hear anything here. Nope. All right, so no questions from the media, which is kind of rare given what we've seen the past 2.5 weeks. Chris Gutierrez here on Dr. Phil's Merit TV. Again, you've been watching the live executive action, the executive order being signed by President Trump, something that he says is all about common sense. Something that he called, quote, so ridiculous. Our political director, Lindsay Keith, just so you know, for context, was inside the East Room. She's now going to hustle and make her way outside the White House and will join us momentarily to give us her perspective on things. But I also want to bring in Oli London. He transitioned and then detransitioned. He's also the author of a book called Gender Madness. Oli, thank you for being here. Your thoughts on what we just saw?
Well, this is a very historic day, and as we saw, Trump gathered dozens of young athletes, girls and women that have been competing, including Riley Gaines, who had to compete against biological male Leah Thomas. And really, this is about restoring common sense. It's about restoring fairness in women's sports. And sadly, over the last few years, we've seen hundreds of women and girls lose out to biological males in sports. And it's all about restoring fairness. And it doesn't mean that, trans athletes aren't able to compete in sports. They absolutely are. Some sports have open categories. Some cycling competitions have open categories where transgender athletes can compete. And they also have, obviously, of course, the men's category where they can also compete. So it's not about excluding anyone, but it's simply about restoring fairness, because we know biological males do have a significant advantage over women.
Let's talk about that a second, Oli, because something that the president pointed out is, and these are numbers that he gave us, there have been 11,000 competitions in which biological men competed against women, of which 3,500 of those, the transgender athlete won the competition. But he specifically pointed out a few things. For example, there was a bike race, he said, in which a biological man beat the nearest, the best female competitor, I guess you could say, by 5.5 hours in a bike race. And then there was a powerlifting competition in which a biological man outperformed a woman by 440 pounds. Help me unpack that. You mentioned kind of level the playing field and making it fair, but also, isn't part of this to make it safe?
Absolutely. We heard President Trump directly speak to Peyton McNabb, who was in the crowd behind him. And she was actually a teen volleyball player. She was injured by a transgender player who hit the ball, hit her on the head, and she collapsed and was unconscious. And she has suffered medical issues ever since. So, in the interest of not only fairness, but also protecting women's and girls' safety, because we know, again, biological males have a larger muscle mass. They have a larger strength. We know that they've won many competitions over women. And, the fact that Peyton McNabb had to go through that when it was entirely preventable, as President Trump said, is incredibly wrong. But thankfully, this has now been fixed, and President Trump has just signed this order.
What's the argument, Oli, on the other side? What's the argument for allowing biological men to compete against women?
Well, transgender athletes claim that they are women. They believe they are women, so they think it's in their right to compete as women. And they try to claim that after 11 or 12, if they start puberty blockers, their testosterone levels are low enough to compete. But it's still simply not the case. They still have high testosterone levels, regardless of how many hormone and puberty blocker suppressants they take. So that is the argument they make. And there have been sporting bodies like the World Aquatics Organization, which did create a transgender category in the interest of fairness. However, not a single trans swimmer signed up to join it. So they actually had to cancel the category because nobody wanted to join it. So the problem is that trans athletes believe they're women, believe they're entitled to compete in women's sports. But as studies show that regardless of taking puberty blockers, even from a young age, that they still have abnormally high testosterone levels and therefore have an advantage over women.
Tell us about your journey, Ali. What is it that you did and why?
Well, so I actually went through a transition myself. I had multiple facial feminization surgeries. I lived openly as a transgender woman for a number of years. And, I was trying to become somebody I wasn't. I was confused. I was told throughout my life that I was more like a girl and I was more feminine. So, I was led down this path. But really, I ultimately realized that it wasn't make me happy. I was trying to become somebody completely different. And you know what? I needed to love the person that's inside. And I think, the case is different for every person. Some people feel different. But for me, and of course, for many detransitioners out there, it's, we have found happiness being ourselves, but we were led astray by doctors, by, therapists, and social media also plays a part. So at the end of the day, I discovered that, it's important to be yourself, be happy with yourself, and learn to love yourself.
Yeah, well said. But what was it? What was it that triggered that internal response where you came to that conclusion?
Well, I actually found God. So I'd struggled internally with an identity crisis for well over a decade, since I was a teen, for about 15 years, and really struggled with that. And, I was going down this path where I was having more surgeries. I was considering going, the full way with the surgeries to transition. And, I came to a crossroads in my life that, do I continue down this path that isn't really making me happy, or do I actually try and fix my problems? And that is when I started going to church and, found God. And that was a very powerful outlet, for many people, whatever they're going through in life, whether they're going through an addiction or anything else, if you seek solace in God, and embrace God, that can really help you have direction in life and give you light.
Amen. I want to, as you probably already know, Ali, there are more than half of the states across the country have already adopted policies to stop transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. But in Utah in 2022, the Republican governor, Spencer Cox, actually wrote a veto message that the state's High School Activity Association had identified only 4 student athletes that year who were competing against women, none of whom had any complaints from students, families, or administrators. And so he wrote this, and I'd like you to respond to this. He said, quoting now, 4 kids and only one of them playing girls' sports. That's what all of this is about. That's what Cox wrote at the time. 4 kids who aren't dominating or winning trophies or taking scholarships. 4 kids who are just trying to find some friends and feel like they are part of something. How would you respond to that?
Look, clearly he's pulling on the heartstrings there, saying that this is just a very small number of kids and, trying to say that their rights are being taken away. But at the end of the day, every child and every person has the right to play sports and everybody should be included in sports. However, if you are born biologically male, you should be in the male category, and if you're female, you should be in the female. But there are of course many sports in schools as well that are open categories, so boys and girls can play, and that is fair. But when it comes to actual competitive sports, so if these are competitions across the state, this is when you really have to take it seriously. And it's one thing in a school when you've got boys and girls playing together, in the lunch hour, playing sports on the sports field. But it's another thing when you have serious competitions, when you have somebody that is biologically male competing as a girl. It just simply isn't fair.
Donald Trump calling this restoring sanity and common sense. The way that this will directly impact institutions and bigger governing bodies like the NCAA, for example, is through funding, right, Ali? And so this really it really sends a clear message that, they risk the federal funding that they believe is coming if they continue to allow this. Is that your interpretation?
Yeah, absolutely. With this executive order, it will mean that any sporting body that does try to push the transgender sports could lose federal funding. So I think that is a big threat for the sporting bodies and institutions that, rely on this funding to put on their competition. So I think now Trump has really tackled the DEI. He's tackled the woke. He's declared that there are only two genders, male and female. He's, of course, done this executive order against medical transitions on young children. So, I think many companies are falling in line. We saw that when Trump took office and just before, even Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg kind of, moved to Team Trump in a sense. They both donated to his inauguration fund. They're both obviously attended the inauguration. So we are seeing companies that were typically woke and pushing DEI now reversing that. So I do think sporting bodies will fall in line as well.
Well, one of the largest sporting bodies is the Olympic Committee, right? And President Trump said that he's sending a clear message to the Olympic Committee that America rejects what he called transgender lunacy. So in the summer of 2028, LA will host the Summer Olympics, but Donald Trump says that the visa applications could be denied now for transgender athletes. How do you see this playing out, Oli?
Yeah, absolutely. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and President Trump said that the visas could be denied because they're basically saying it's a fraud if you lie about the gender, your biological sex. So, I think the Olympics will fall in line. We did see at the Paris Paralympics, they did have a transgender runner, Valentina Perio, which is an Italian runner, and they'd already won 7 women's titles. So we saw them compete in the women's Paralympics. However, I do think that Los Angeles is hosting the 2028 Olympics. Trump will be the president. I do think we're not going to see any trans athletes, and I hope that the Olympic Committee will adopt a new policy that is fair for female athletes.
Well, this executive order coinciding with National Girls and Women in Sports Day. Oli London, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break right here. We're hoping to also check in with our political director, our chief White House correspondent, Lindsay Keith, right after this quick break right here on Dr. Phil's Merit TV.
Forecasters are bracing for a tropical storm that is rapidly
breaking news in right now.
Taking the internet by storm.
This is going to be a great show today.
Morning on Merit Street starts right now.
You're looking pretty good, Mr. Johnson.